we can work through that. There you go. All right, so let me just do some basic things then, just because of some of the comments that I've received on this. We'll just do some really quick basic things, and then we'll move into some advanced items as well to go with this. If that's okay with everybody, we should be good to go. The screen over here. And share the screen with you. All right, so on the screen what you have is ZipForms. It is the company's, it's called a brokerage edition is what it's called. It's for Remax Elite. It's not the other ZipForms. It has more tools and etc. One of the things I'd like to show you, since we are going to just touch base on it, right underneath where the photo is, there should be a photo. You have your profile and settings. Please make that your very first stop. There's some critical items in here, like your email signature should be set up. Make sure you have that done. You also have sign in and security. By the way, as I'm going through this, if you have anything that's you want to throw it out, and we'll see what we can do. We have products, and under products, we have the ZipForm mobile edition. That's part of the brokerage account, which means you can do everything you need to do in ZipForms. You can do it on your phone or your iPad or tablet, whatever as well, to include signatures. So instead of sending the documents to them, they can actually sign them on your tablet using the stylus or the finger or whatever as well, which works really well. And then settings, really important. On the settings, you have digital link, which is a part of the brokerage program. You can go with DocuSign, and right now DocuSign is provided by NAR as part of the benefits program. My understanding is that's going to go away at the end of the year, so you might as well just use digital link. It's a part of it. Make sure you have Central Time set up on here. So again, profile settings, go to settings, because this tab about me, this bottom one right here, is all underneath profile and settings. Select Central Time, so you have that. You can decide what you want to open up first. Really a good tool depending on what you want to use. And then down here you have the opportunity to link any other ZipForm editions you may have. So if you're using your other ZipForm account that's been provided to you by Texas Realtors or NAR, you can link that if you want. And then the only other thing here that I'd like to throw out is title integration. So you can integrate this with your title. So you can select your title company that you want to use. If it's on here, you can do a search for it or whatever as well, and select that and make them a part of your main system if it's a title company you normally use. Right? So that can be in there for you. Do not click on these others unless you know what they are. And you can look at that at the top underneath partners. You can learn more about it. Young Alfred is an insurance company, and if you click on integration, they will grab your contact information and start emailing people you have in ZipForms to see if they want to buy insurance, according to one of the brokers, local brokers here in McAllen. The other one I want you to click on is notification settings. Notification settings, because what you want to do is you want to get notified when you have things going on. We're going to talk a little bit about the doc inbox. We're going to talk a little bit about the doc inbox, and hold on just a second. We'll talk a little bit about the doc inbox as we go through this, and then we'll also talk about another area that can be of help to you as an agent as you're working through this. So doc inbox email notification, absolutely, I would say yes. Whether you want in-app notification or not is entirely up to you. That's if you have it on your phone, tablet, whatever you use other than your typical desktop or laptop. Transaction notifications, I would say yes. And then of course, document notifications as well. Down here where it has e-signature, in-app notifications. And then we also have what is called a listing flash. We may talk about that a little later on as we get to it. If not, we'll catch that on another date. And then retention policy. We do not have anything special set up. TREC requires brokers to keep the forms for 4 years. If we create a transaction today, it'll keep it till 2028, so we don't worry about it. And by the way, if you guys would do me a favor, if you can see the chat, please throw your name in there, because at the end, what I do is I'll copy that and save it so we have a list of everybody that's been here instead of trying to write down names as we go through this. I'd appreciate that. All right. The other thing I talked about this morning, just real quick, and I'd like to throw out here for you as well, is the two-factor authentication. That's entirely up to you. I have that on everything else. I don't have it on here, although I probably should and may here in the near future. But two-factor authentication is nothing more than I go to log in. So like I use this on our banking, for example. I put in my username, I put in my password. It comes up and says, you've been sent a code. And what I get is I get a text. I go in, I plug that code into the website, hit submit. Now I have access to the account. I would encourage that at the agent level, just for security purposes. Just for security purposes. And if you have any problems, you can always reset your password, or you can let myself know, Carrie or Nina know, and you'll get the, we can go in as admin and reset those for you. So there shouldn't be any problems there. Any questions about any of that? That was just real quick. Profile, hit the profile and settings, and then we'll move from there. No questions? Awesome. So this dashboard in the settings, you decide what you want to show up. This is what I use all the time. And the reason I use it is just so I can take a look at what's going on. This shows what's happening within Corpus Christi. This is yours, right? So you can see Karen's used this a lot, and she's about the only one. Thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate it. About the only one from out there that's been using it, and she puts a lot of transactions in here. We will be taking a look at some of those here in a little bit as well. Transactions to close this month. If you as an agent go in here and you use this, this works as a pipeline. So Nina or Carrie or Norma's could look at this and say, okay, with Corpus Christi, we have 5 new listings, or we have things going on. We have closed transactions coming up, or we have 2 that fell through, right? So they can actually go in here and see what's going on and use it as a management tool, which is what it's designed for, if everybody used it. But there's some that's opting not to. So that part doesn't really work the way it should today, possibly in the future. But that's the dashboard part of it. We're talking about the advanced side. So if there's anything on here that you want to touch base on, just yell at me. I clicked on forms, right? So if I go in here, I just click on forms. On the right-hand side, all the forms show up. You have a choice in working with this. We have agents in San Antonio, so their library's in here. They have a few documents that belong to them, San Antonio. Then we have TREC, which you have those same forms right here. If you just use Texas Realtors, everything's there unless it's specific for the board or the brokerage. So for example, right now we have requested the funding form to be customized for Corpus Christi. We've requested that, but we don't have it yet. Once we get that, there'll be another library here that'll say Remax Elite or REMC LLC type thing. That'll be on here. I would recommend once you get the form, you move it over your template. You don't have to worry about it again, right? It's going to be a fillable form that you can use. Right now, you can use that form and make it fillable yourself using PDF Annotator, for example, and then just save it on your hard drive and upload it whenever you fill it out on your hard drive, upload it into the transaction as you go through it. On here, when you're looking at the forms, one of the forms that you'll hear me talk about a lot is FDES. It's form description and reference. If you click on that, so if I have Texas Realtors, I plug in FDES, this will come up, and this actually tells me every form that's available, how it's to be used, and what it's supposed to be used for. So that works really well. You also can do a search by category, or you can do it alphabetically or by form number. I am not going to look up anything by form number. what is the odds if you remember the form number? I mean, seriously. One of the good things about Lone Wolf, one of the things they've changed on this is that if I wanted to look up an exclusive right to sell, I can just start typing and it's going to come up. Where before, when ZipLogix had it totally on their own, you had to type in the whole first word to be able to get a response on some of this stuff, which was crazy. So Lone Wolf has done some good things with it. You as an agent should have your profile set up. That should be the first thing, right? And then your templates set up. Once you have the templates set up, this is the one we created this morning. Once you have your templates set up, then you start doing your transactions. On the templates, when you go to set them up, we walked through all that this morning. That'll be on that video so you guys can check it out. But if you've not done it before, when you click into templates, you should see these two. These are not your templates. They're the company's. So what you want to do is you want to click on new and create your own template, right? And then input all the information into it. Everything, your name, your phone number, the company address, whatever office you're with, all that, put everything in it so that you could have your listing packet, your buyer packet, whatever else you needed. If you have investors you're working with, you could put that in there. Get them all set up so that they're easy to use. So when the time comes to do a transaction, all you have to do is click on transaction, click on new, right? Click on new listing, for example. Now on here, you don't see anything on the bottom as of yet, right? But when I plug in an address, if I plug in an address, it should autofill for us a little bit. Usually it'll give us a verify the address like 123 did this morning. Not doing that. It's okay. We're going to bypass that. Normally you type it in, it'll autofill, the address will automatically start coming up. We're not getting anything on it. Worked this morning. Let's we're going to play with this just a minute and then we'll work on this. If I'm setting up a transaction, whether it's a listing or a buyer side of it, I decide the category that I want. And I want you to look at the bottom of this where it has the templates. This morning we created a listing packet. If I go to multi-unit, nothing pops up. If I go to commercial, nothing pops up. But when I click on residential, now my templates are there because this morning we set up a template for a listing packet. So that's already there, right? So now it can be whatever we want to call it. That street should auto pop. There we go. Just like that, for example, right? So we can pull that up, type that address in there, and now we can go with it. One of the other benefits that you have in Corpus Christi, is you have an MLS Connect. And here, I'm going to use the MLS number. I'll tell you what, anybody have an MLS number we can use? Just throw it in the chat. MLS number, one of your listings, anybody? MLS number, anybody?
Matt, did you want to use my one from this morning?
Was that 385-602?
Yes.
385-602. Okay. So you type that in, you click on find. Right. So let me change this just a little bit. I'm going to take this address out. We are doing listing. MLS find. I'm going to type in the MLS number 385-602. And this is tied to Coastal Bend MLS. We can include a photo if we want. Click on find. And it'll pull the information out of MLS. So now I have this design, I have this set up for listing, but if I was working on the buyer side or if this listing was about to expire and I'm going to get it next. We could do it that way. As soon as I click on the listing, it's going to pull that information over for me. Here are the templates that are automatically applied by admin. Now I'll change some of this today, so these won't automatically be there for you. You have to create your own and make that auto apply. So that did not populate with the, there it is. Yeah. Forest. And then when we click save, that's going to create the transaction for us, and it's going to bring the information over from MLS, just like that. So it's actually extremely easy. It makes it a little more easier for you guys. It brings over information from the MLS that we might possibly need or could use in this transaction. For example, it brought the seller's name over, brought the listing agent over, right? Automatically. It brought the address, the legal description, everything we basically need. So that's the basic way to start a transaction, but it works really well if you have your template set up, because then when I go to documents, the documents are going to be there and they're going to have your information in there as well, right? And this, I mean, this was just created, but it's going to come from the templates and from the information we pull over. Any questions on that one? We covered that this morning as well, so that's on that video, so you guys will be able to pull that up and take a look at it. Now that's one way of doing this. One of the things that I did not show this morning, or let me go back in here real quick. One of the things I did show this morning, but I want to show it again right now for you all. I made a comment this morning that I would love or think about becoming a listing agent again and doing this. I had so much fun as a listing agent. And there's so many tools today that you could use that makes your life so much easier. For example, if this was my transaction, if it's my listing, your listing, for example, right here where it says email to the transaction, if I click on that, here's an email address that I could use. It's email to the transaction. That's what that stands for, email to the transaction. So that's the email address that I'd want to give to, I'd want to put in MLS in agent remarks. Please submit all offers to this email address. Title company, we go on contract. Title company, here's my email address for that transaction. Inspector wants to send an inspection report. Here's where it goes to. Buyer's agent, if you need anything for this transaction, please send it to this email. It's always going to go, if you'll use that email, it'll always go to this specific transaction. So you don't have to go looking for it. And that's why when we're talking about the profile earlier on the notifications, set it up so that you get notifications that you have something that just came into the transaction, right? So that you can actually take a look at it. I think that's one of the best tools that they have with this. And I would use that on every transaction. But what if I didn't want to do that? I didn't want to put an email, a separate email out for each transaction. That's fine. One of the things I didn't show this morning that we have talked about in other classes is you have the doc inbox right here. See this at the top? And when I click on documents, here's another email address I could use. And if I was doing this where time and organization is important, I would plug that email address into MLS as my MLS email address. And the reason for that is if an agent doesn't read remarks and they email me an offer to the MLS email, which would be this one, then it's going to come in right here. And then I can take that document and move it over to the transaction that it needs to go to. So there's the email address. If somebody sent me something to that email address right now, it would come in right here. So just as an example, I'm going to add a document real quick so you see what I'm talking about. So let's say that document was emailed into me and I see it. I know it's there, but this isn't where I want it. I can click on the drop down and I can move to the transaction. So this will open up and okay, yes, I want it in the River Forest one. I click on it, boom, it's gone. Now it's in that transaction. So instead of it coming into my Yahoo, saving it on my hard drive, and then, or Google or whatever, AOL, whatever you're using, saving it on my hard drive, and then uploading it, I can use this email address and everything will go to my ZipForm. And to me, that is cool as beans. I just absolutely love that. If you couldn't tell. Yeah. Anybody have any questions there? And you always have the history. The history will tell you what's gone on with your doc inbox if you have any questions about it or anything like that. And by the way, if you accidentally delete something, we could probably still save that, even though on your side it looks like it's deleted. We may be able to pull it back in if any of that ever happens. So profile, templates, and then into the transactions, but use the doc inbox to your benefit. Questions or comments? None? All right. So I'm going to go to the transactions real quick. No, before I do that, let me do this. This is supposed to be an advanced side of this. This is a choice you have. You decide what you want to do with it. Right here, we have contacts. What do you want to do with contacts? And it's entirely up to you how you do this. But I can create a new contact if I wanted to. I could import the contact if I wanted to from different places, right? And that way they will automatically be in my ZipForm if I need them. Personally, I've never used that because we didn't have access to that or haven't had access to that in years. ZipForm started a contact management system. ZipLogix had created one, but it was really, really cumbersome. It was hard to use. So I would show it, but I never used it. This moves really well if you wanted to use it for your contacts. And if you don't have a contact management system, this can work for that. And when I talk about a contact management system, Top Producer is a contact management system. Realty Juggler is one. There's several of them out there, right? Booge is supposed to be that. If you don't have one, and by the way, you can link your Booge to ZipForms. So you can tie those two together as well. If you don't have something you're using and you're comfortable with, this can work. One of the other, and when you're talking about your contacts, you can actually pull them from here as well, whichever way you want to do it. Moxie is one that I've heard agents talk about quite a bit up in San Antonio. Task. So you as an agent can create tasks for your activities. It's like Booge in a lot of ways. You decide how you want to do it. You have urgent tasks, you have things you're working on, you have a checklist. You can create a checklist. You can create the calendar to go with it, right? You can merge your Google Calendar with this one or this one with your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar. There's so many different things you can do with it. Just depends on what you want to work with. Now, if I put it with my Google Calendar, for example, it's going to want to have access to that. So you can actually get that information in here. And now we need to take that off. So you can use it that way. It has additional tools that you can use to run your business if that's what you wanted to do with it. So many different parts to work with. So we talked about contacts, we talked about tasks and things that can be accomplished with it. You have ZipForm task, other task, all task. If I was using this as my main calendar, then I would actually have that opportunity to do that and label it and et cetera, right? Checklist and other activities. Questions there? All right, so then we'll go to the transactions. We'll go to the transactions, and inside the transaction, when we look at some of this, so here's all my transactions. And again, this is not something that was covered this morning. This is going into the advanced side of it. This morning was just get up and running, give you guys a little more with this one. All of your transactions should be in here. If you're using ZipForm, like I said, Karen's using it for everything. Everything's in there for, if you go in here, you have all your transactions in here. So let's take, this is the one I created this morning. So I'm going to open that up. And by the way, you see the yellow clip there. That means that's pending review, right? Pending review. If I open this up, right here across the top, I can change the status of this. So let's say it's closed now. It's going to ask me for a closing date. Let's say it closed today and the price was $175. So now when I go back to my transactions, it'll even show here that it was a transaction that closed, and it moves it from active to closed. So the system will, it's designed to allow you to use it as your main source for your transactions. And it's so cool the way it has it broken down. If I wanted to filter it, like for example, here I have all. If I wanted just listings, just purchases, and I haven't done any of those, both transactions I built today have been on listings, right? If I wanted to filter it, I can filter it by all this information. So I want listings, but I want industrial, apply, don't have any, right? And it's my transactions, or if you have a team and the team's been set up with it, you can actually look at all the transactions within the team as well. But it allows you to work on it. Whenever that transaction's in here, you always have the little drop down arrow, which allows you to do all the other things you might need to do. Transaction details, when was it started, what all is involved in it. You have save it as a template. I wouldn't recommend that. You can copy it. Oh my gosh, why would I need to copy a transaction? Anybody? Why would I need to copy a transaction? I will tell you that I have used it. The way I've used it is I listed a subdivision. I listed a subdivision for sale. And as we're working on the subdivision, we have transactions going on within it, right? So we're modifying it. I had listings with a seller where I had one seller, right? I'm the listing agent. He's the owner, and we're doing multiple transactions, 5 at one time, for example. So instead of all in one subdivision, instead of creating each individual file and having to do every one of them, I just click on copy, go and make the changes, save it. So 123 A Street becomes 456 A Street, but all I did was copy it, so I don't have to go in and type everything in. The system will show 2 transactions, but I don't have to restart all over with it. I just copy it over. And in the subdivision, that helped out because as we were doing the individual lots, I just copied everything over and just changed the legal description and the price on them. Import, export, you have that option. You can lock it, show form versions, you get that. Here's the net sheets. On the seller's net sheet that ZipForm has, I would not encourage you to use that. I always encourage using the title company's app or the title company's website on that one. But you do have that available if you want to take a look at it and use it. Any questions? So let's say I want to transfer this. You're not going to be able to do this. You would not be able to do this because you don't, unless you had a team, right? You wouldn't be able to do this because you'd be able to transfer the transaction from one person to the next. So let's say Justin and I'm working on a transaction together. Both of us have access to it or need access to it, or I start it and then no, look, you take care of it. Then we can go in and transfer this transaction over to them. It's not a big deal. It's real easy to do. And in fact, I do that, have done that on several transactions in the mission office to start with. All right, then right here on this one, when we take a look at it, and we're inside the transaction, we're looking at what's going on within that transaction. Remember, you have the tools here that you can play with. You have the fax cover sheet. We talked about that this morning. You click on it, it'll open up. There's the fax number. If I need to fax this transaction, I can. If I need to send this to somebody, I can email it to them, and then they can fax it back to me if that's what they need. So you have that option with it, right? We also have add a document. If I need to add something to it, I can do that from different locations. Not a big deal. When we set up our templates this morning, if you guys look at the screen, some of you were here this morning, a couple of you, 3 of you were here this morning. If you look at the screen, on our template we set up this morning, I talked about how to set up folders in the template. And on the left-hand side, these are the 3 folders we set up. That was in the template. So now every time that template is used, those 3 folders will be created. And that's why when you set your templates up, you might want to set it up with the folders that you want. So every time you create a transaction, it goes in there. One of the other things we talked about this morning was making sure that we had the parties identified. When I go to create a transaction, if I bring it over with MLS, like we were looking at earlier, it'll bring over what MLS has, right? But if I don't have everybody there, I can come in here and add somebody. Let's say we want to add seller number 2. So we can add seller number 2. We can add their email address. And the reason I wanted to make sure you've seen that, if you take a look at this, let's say we're in the transaction and I need to get hold of the other agent, or I need to get hold of the seller, or I need to get hold of the title company. So if all this information is filled out, I can go here and just click on secure message. If there's an email address, and send them a message through ZipForm. So again, I don't have to go to my public email. I can just send a message through here through using ZipForm, which to me makes it a whole lot easier. Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and send this to you if I could real quick.
Sure.
right? And right here, when we click on history, it shows that there's been a message sent right there. So one of the questions I give sometimes is if I use that secure messaging to send somebody something, will I be able to track that I sent it? And that's in history. It all shows up just like right here, right? So you can use that. Now, when they respond, it's going to go to your email. As far as I know, it always goes to, it'll go to your regular email. It's not going to come back inside the transaction, which is why we want to use the transaction email for everything else. So some of you were not here this morning. Have any of you messed with the signing side of this? Those of you that's here, Lucy? Okay,
Yes,
Karen?
I have. It's I even had Carrie walk me through it. It was so easy.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Very easy.
Thanks. The for those of you that haven't, just send something to yourself or send something to another agent. So if I'm inside a transaction, for example, I can e-sign here, and it's going to give me the documents to actually highlight which document do I want to send. So I can do it that way. Or if I'm inside the documents, I can bring the document up and then just click on e-sign, and that's the document that's going. So just about everything in here, there's 2 or 3 different ways of doing it. One of the things I did not touch base on this morning was if we have multiple people in here, let's say we want to send that document. I'm not going to send this one, but if we want to send multiple people, I talked about the signing order this morning. And if you use the signing order, like on this one, for example, number 1's going to get it first. And until they sign it, number 2's not going to get anything. Right? So what I recommended this morning was just leave that blank. Who cares who signs first, right? But we do need it if we have 2 people using the same email address. If we have 2 people using the same email address, then we definitely want to use signing order. It'll go one first and then to the second one. So that gives us that option to do that. If you need to add signers, you have that capability of adding people in here, or you can add a reviewer if you want to. Somebody to take a look at it for you. That's possible. And then you just click on next and it'll go over to the document. And as we talked about this morning, when it comes over to the document, it automatically puts your initials and everything on here for you, right? Everything's there that needs to be there based on the document you submit. If I need to make changes to this, over on the right-hand side, the person that's highlighted, that'll be the changes that I make. So if I dragged initial here, that would be Michelle's then, right? If I go here and I click on drag initials, then it'll be the other one, right? So whoever's up here on the top for the signers, that's what's going to happen. I'm pretty basic. I would have to walk through this thing one person at a time, or I forget somebody's initials. And there's some of you like that, because I see forms with 2 names on it. And they'll have one page will have one initial and not both sometimes, or you'll have no initials. Remember, anytime there's a change to a form, we need to initial it. So what if I'm working on this and I've talked to the owner, whatever it is, and they say make a change? I can actually use this slot right here where it says markup and come over here and draw a line through that. And now I can move those initials here. So we're initialing that change. Unlike dot loop, those boxes will be blank when they're done. And it's not going to look like somebody used whiteout on it, right? It'll just be blank. You'll be able to see through it. So if I actually put it over the lettering, you'd be able to see the lettering underneath it but it does make the initials hard to see because it'll blend in with that lettering, but it doesn't cover anything up, is what I'm getting at, right? You know, because I have one of those little tape things where you roll it and it puts the white, like white out on it, right? Like that. That's where some of the forms look in dot loop. This does not do that. If you wanted to write something, you can write something on it, draw the lines on it, whatever you need to do. If you want to add text, you can add a text box to it just by clicking on the text box. You have the drop and drag. You can do all of this. There's the text box. Should allow us to do that. Put text in there. So they'll be able to write. That's so that they can write things in, not you. So if I need them to put, perfect example, actually, by accident. Let me drag this up here. Get rid of that. Let me show you something. So for example, one of the things, because I get a little crazy about some of this personally. I want a text box, but I don't want it here. I want the owner to write in their sales price. So now they'll have that as an obligation to actually write that in. The problem you have with that is whoever it's tagged for is the one that's going to have to do it. Right, and putting two boxes there would not be a good thing. But, all right, and it'll come down and it'll get their signatures and all the other stuff. We walked through this morning a little bit. When they get it, all they need to do is click on it, and it'll actually put their signature in. They're done. Then you get it back as a PDF. Any questions there? So next takes us over to where we'd actually send it, and we're not going to do that. We did all of that this morning, walked through it. I sent one out this morning where I went to Michelle and myself. So you could actually send it to, on a listing, for example, I could send it to the sellers and have it set up so it goes to the sellers and then back to me, just for an example, just as an example, with my signatures and initials. So when I get it back, then I go in and I sign initial. When I click done, now the inside the transaction is going to be a PDF version of it. So everything's done. I don't have to worry about it. It's so easy. When ZipLogix created this, and like I've said before, I was teaching the ZipForms back in 2005 is when I started with it. When they created the digital ink part of it, and they started putting everything together, the class we had in 2005, the idea was for me to send you as the seller the listing, and you send it back to me. I do everything online. I don't have to print any paperwork. Everything's done. But better yet, you're the listing agent. I'm the buyer's agent. I send it to the buyer initials and signs. I have it coming back to me for review and forwarded to the listing agent and then to the seller. To do that, we have to have everybody's email, right? And that way, when the seller signs everything, then we're done with it. And we all get both agents get a PDF version of it. They've gone further with this where it can now actually be also included. You can also include the title company, which is one of the sweet things about it. So I don't have to mess with it anymore. Everything gets taken care of. Any questions? All right. So inside the transaction, if we have had the signing done for it and stuff, we'll actually have a form for that signing. So let's go down here to this one. This is the one we worked on this morning. So you can see that real quick. We'll actually have an envelope in there for us. So if I click on e-sign, there's, take me back. There's the envelope for us. That's inside the transaction. It's all done. If I click on if I click on the envelope, it'll open up and it'll show me what's there. So here's the documents. It shows the status is completed. Everything, there's the documents there. If I want to retrieve the documents, retrieve the signed documents, I can click here. And what it does is it sends it to the transaction. You see, we created this 2 hours ago. So everything's done there. All right. Documents were successfully stored in the transaction. So I go back to the transaction documents. And inside the documents is this, where you have everything already there, ready to go. Right. And it shows you right here, you used AuthentiSign. Oh, can you guys see that little 1 right there at the top? Those that were here this morning, what's that for? What's that because of?
There's an
Exactly.
additional document added at the end.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so that we used an addendum this morning. When you go to create the transaction, remember there's a little paperclip up there. And what it does is it adds an addendum. So instead of writing anything else in there, we can just do this. Click on the paperclip and it'll add that in there. And then they sign that as well. And you have everything in the transaction you could possibly need. Any questions on that one? You guys have been really quiet. All right. So I'm going to show you one other possible thing with this. Actually, I want to show you 2 other things, and then we're going to probably call it quits unless there's questions. RPR. I don't know how many of you are using RPR, but we use it all the time. If I work for a buyer or the agency I work with, if we work for a buyer, we always use RPR. You have overlapping MLSs. If you have an overlapping MLS, you're not going to be able to see every listing available, because some agents will get a listing and they'll put it in their MLS, not in yours, for example. And when that happens, it could be right next door to you, but you're not going to see it in your MLS. And in fact, let me just stop for a second and share this with you. I got a phone call during lunch from an individual from San Antonio from one of the previous classes I had up there. He's driving from San Antonio to Corpus Christi to show a property. For us, that would probably be a no-no, right? On the surface, because you don't have geographic competency. And he was from Corpus Christi, so he felt comfortable with it. His broker's okay with it. Not a big deal. What he called for was for something else, but he mentioned he was on his way to Corpus, so I asked why, and that's when he told me about that. And when I said, isn't that an issue with your broker? He's like, no, they don't care. Besides that, I used to live there. It's not a big deal. For us, that could possibly be a big deal, right? Because geographic competency is so important. But he asked that one question, and that's why I want to share it with you. He asked that one question that just rocks my boat. And that is there a way you or somebody you know could get me the MLS sheet for that property? It's in the Corpus Christi MLS. And what did I tell him? Not a chance. Not a chance. If you want that information, you can get it from RPR, with the exception of the commission split, and you can get that probably from the listing agent. But make sure you do an agreement between the broker and broker agreement, because otherwise your broker may not get paid. And I share that with you because we all pay for MLS. It's part of what we do. And sharing that with somebody who's unlicensed or with somebody outside of our MLS is not necessarily good, although that may change in the future. Right now, that's not a good thing. Anyway, on RPR, if I'm on RPR, and one of the reasons why I share that with you when we're on RPR, the whole reason I use it is because we have overlapping MLSs. I belong to one. I don't belong to all three of them here in the Valley. Only belong to one of them. But if I wanted to do something, I could click on, let's see, I got this property right here. And by the way, let's see if that goes back there. Let's see if that, I didn't. Okay. If, let's say I'm going to just grab this property right here real quick. Let's say I'm working with a buyer and the buyer looks at this. We do a market analysis on it. They like the property. Then we do the market analysis. We get everything together. They say, yes, let's put an offer in on it. What I'm going to do from right here is I'm going to click on transaction, the lone wolf, and I'm going to click on start a new transaction, purchase, and okay. And then I'm going to go to ZipForm. Now I have this link to a different ZipForm, I believe. But when it opens up, you can see right here, it opened up with the property. So there's RPR. There's the property. There's the address, 5125. Here's the address. It went right over to RPR went right over to ZipForm. So you want to link the two of them together and look at the information it brought over, right? So I have the seller's information, 1 and 2. Have the information I need to get started with it. But even better was when I go to documents. Here's the 1 to 4 family contract. And all the information is already in the form. And all I did was bring it over from RPR. So when we talk about advanced tools on this thing, RPR is cool. I use it for every transaction. So does somebody else I know really well will use it. So if I had this one set up where it applied my template, all these boxes would already be marked. But I don't have that set up in this one. But so easy to work with. And then you notice right here where it says RPR, because it came from RPR, so it'll link back to RPR for that specific property, as long as I have this transaction in here. Any questions there? Okay. Do any of you use RPR like that? Would you use RPR like that?
I do use it, but I have an app on my phone.
You have the RPR app on your phone?
Yes, and I do use it.
Awesome. Good deal. Thank you. Thank you. I want to, I'm going to try to do something real quick here. So you can see this. Just give me a second. A couple seconds. Let me stop the share on this for just a second. So just a minute. All right. So on the screen right now, what you have is you have my phone, right? And when I go to tech, in the upper right-hand corner is the icon for ZipForm Mobile. ZipForm Mobile. Next to that is the icon for RPR. And that's not actually tech, it's in production. That's just the way I have it set up. That's all that is. If I open up ZipForm Mobile, this is what it looks like. So this is what I was trying to share with you. Let me see. This is what I was trying to share with you. Everybody can see that okay, right? Right. So on here, I can do everything I need to do. I can do everything I need to do as an agent on here. The little hamburger things at the top or whatever they're called, there's the dashboard. And I have this linked right now to the mission office right now, but I can bring up all the accounts on here. There's documents to be approved, right? So I can go in and I can take a look at those. Where's that? So here's the seller's disclosure. And I show you this because you have the option. That didn't open up. Come on. Close it out. You have the option to mess with the transactions and different things that you have in here. Let me go to transactions. And then as you are working with them, this is a fake one that I have created inside here. So you can see on the screen, you have almost everything you have on the dashboard, on the desktop, which we were working from, you have on the phone. And this would be your phone, your tablet, whatever. It's the mobile version of ZipForm. When you go in here to work on it, the only difference is you see that gray line where it says transaction summary. That's where you browse at. So when you click on that, there's your documents, your checklist, everything that we've covered so far. There's everything right there for you that you can use. And if you wanted to get something signed or initialed or whatever it is, you can go from there, right? And work on that. E-sign, you can do it the same way we did it online. I can do it that way, or I can use the mobile version for it as well. And that takes you back to the normal side of it. So all of you have access to this. Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at the App Store right now, looking for it. It says ZipForm Mobile for business or for Elite Agent. Which one should we get of those?
It is the icon looks like that. It says ZipForm Mobile is what it says.
Yeah, both of these do, but okay, I see the difference. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So the other one I want to show you while we're on here, because we're talking about RPR, is if I click on RPR and you're using the mobile, that was a little circle with it. Let's see which one we're going to use. Let's use this one. So RPR actually uses a tracking device, GPS, right? So it'll show you what's going on in the neighborhood. This works great, but you can do some of the same things that we're talking about. Here's properties for sale. There's a new listing. I can see everything I need to know about the property. I can save that property. And I can create reports from it. I can do all that stuff on here with this. And now this is not an RPR class, but I want you guys to see it because it ties right together. If I was out running around with a buyer and they said they like that property, I would probably bring it up because it's going to show up based on where I'm located, right? I'd probably bring it up, and if nothing else, click on it and highlight it, make it a starred property so that I know the buyer really likes it. If that wasn't all I needed, I can go in here and create a report with it as well. And let's say I want a seller's report or a property flyer or any of those items. I can pull all those out of them right there. Neighborhood report. What's the neighborhood like? I can create that while we're standing right there at the property and send it out to them, right? Right. Anybody have any questions on that one? And again, the focus is with ZipForm and being able to use it. You notice below this form how it has set due date. We're talking an advanced class, right? Advanced on your set the due date. It was on the screen as well with the others. But if we have that, we can create a due date. For this particular one, it can be fixed. So when is that due? Let's say it's due on the 20th and save. So now on the calendar, you're going to get a note saying that this was due today. So if I send something out, if I'm using this entire system as my management system, I can send something to somebody, listing, buyer, whatever it is, and instead of having to remember, hey, I sent them an amendment, did I get anything back? I can go in here and just set a due date for it. And it will show up in my calendar as well. Especially if I have the calendars linked together. Any questions there? Nope. All right. So we are going to, and by the way, that let me show you that hurdler is the one I was talking about earlier. That you see it right there. It's the guy with the green shirt on, that little icon right there. That's the tax. It does mileage and all that other good stuff. Tax bot next to it is what we used to use, but we just recently switched over to hurdler as well. All right, let me get out of here. Any questions about any of those?
Mac, I did have a question if you have time. What if I needed to upload, like, for example, I had a seller's disclosure and I wanted to upload it to ZipForms from my desktop. How do I do that?
Okay, so you have the seller's disclosure because you printed it, you took it to them and they filled it out?
Well, no. It was from a listing agent and I downloaded it, and had but I wanted to upload it to the ZipForms and have my buyer sign it. And instead I went through sign now because I couldn't figure it out. I just could not figure it out.
Okay.
And I was afraid to push buttons and play with it. And I was afraid I was going to screw something up. And it's 10 o'clock at night. And yeah, no, I wasn't going to bother anybody at 10 o'clock at night. It's bad enough I bother Carrie a lot. So.
Yeah, no sweat. There was somebody that texted me the other day, like at 10:30 at night. I don't know if they expected a response or not, but I responded and my wife's like, who are you texting this time of the night? Just responded. So in here, for example, let's say I'm inside the transaction. So for that buyer, you should probably have a file already created. If you don't, just go in and create one. Just click on new, purchase. Residential, and this is going to apply templates to it, but so now I can, if I have it on my hard drive, say the agent emailed it to me like you're talking about, I can go to add doc. Go to my hard drive, find that document. And click OK. Now, if I want to send that document, just that document to the buyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can highlight it here and click on send and just click on email. And I can put their email address in here and send it to them. If that's if I just wanted to send it to them. If I want to send it to them for signatures, again, you have 2 or 3 different ways you can do this stuff. So I can highlight it, I can click on sign, or what I would normally do is I just click on sign here. New. I'd go to that document, whatever it was, let's say lead-based paint addendums, what I uploaded, close. Go next. And then you put, if you don't have their information in, you put their information in, their email address. That's about as fake as you can get. Highlight it, close it, and now you can send it to them. When I go next, it's going to bring the form up. It's a PDF version, right? So it'll bring the form up, and I can just go drop and drag. I want your initials right here. I want your initials right here. And I need a sign right here. And boom, we're ready to go. And then just click next, and it'll take it over and send it out to them.
Okay.
Pretty easy.
Well, I
Yeah,
was
sure.
trying to see where I could see it, but I can't see it. Why can't I see it?
Oh, you're not seeing it?
No.
Not sharing my screen.
So I was trying
Oh,
to write down as fast as you were.
I'm so sorry. Let me just do this. Gracious.
No, I'm sorry.
Get
I'm
out of here.
like,
I'm sorry. Let me do this. I am so sorry. I apologize to all of you for that. We should have yelled at me. Okay.
no. I was trying to write it down as fast as I could.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I'm sorry about that.
No,
All
okay.
right. So what I do is I created a transaction. So you go in, you create a transaction, for example.
Right.
Create the transaction, residential. Yes. If you don't already have it in there, if you already have their transaction in there, you don't need to create one. You go to the documents. You want to bring something in, you go, whoops. You go add a document.
Okay. Add document.
Right.
Okay. Add document. Okay.
Click on OK. And now, and it always goes into the bottom, right?
Mhm.
So then I want to send it to be signed. I can either click this and
Click
do the
on it.
drop down and go sign, right?
Right.
Or what I normally do myself is I just click on e-sign.
Okay. Which is easier for me because that's how I'm doing it.
Yep. Click on new, go get the document, click close, click next, identify the person, their email address.
Mhm.
Gotta have that.com. Close it.
Close, invite to sign, next, invite to sign.
Yeah, when you go next where the document is, so you can add their initials and stuff on there. Because it's a PDF, so it's not automatically going to populate. So you can add their
Okay.
initials, their signature, whatever else you need, wherever you need it at. But what's
Okay.
different again between this and dot loop is these blanks are all clear except for the signature and the initials. So it's not going to leave a box there, in other words. All right.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Anybody else have anything? Michelle, thanks. Anybody else have anything? If not, we are going to wrap this up. And I do appreciate you guys' time. Hope you got something out of it you could use. If you need anything, just shoot me a text or an email. Y'all have a great day. Appreciate it.